Hi, welcome back. I have been talking about finances, and it helps if you watch these videos in order. So there's a short 3-minute one about faith and finances and breaking through in faith, trusting God and not systems. Then there's a second one that is about communications and giving. And now here's a third one about accountability. And what I'm really doing is trying to unfold the way that Marty and I were led to have a breakthrough in faith and finances, and not make rules and not make guidelines for everybody to live by, but rather saying, these are the things that God dealt with us about, and they may be relevant to you too. I just want to say how grateful I am to the Lord. He is such a loving and generous Father. And we left the U.S. To come to England, and we were faith missionaries, and the number of times we heard people say, well, in England it doesn't work that way. And they all presumed that we were supported from the States, but we weren't, because, well, we both came from quite denominationally minded churches, and when we didn't stay in the denominations, they didn't support us. And we were just young people who left the church. We weren't trained and recognized, and so no individuals from the churches were supporting us. Now, Marty's home church supported us at $25 a month for a while. And my parents supported us some, but then after just 2 years, they were so struck by how God had worked in my life and my sister's life, they sold their business and joined YWAM. So that was the end of our support. So we never really felt we were supposed to be supported from the U.S., even though people would assume we were. So we've been supported these last, 35 years or so, primarily and sometimes only from sources here in the United Kingdom. And that's a wonderful thing. So how did it work? Well, the giving and the communications was a big part of it. But the third thing was this. I was at a meeting one day, a lunch appointment with a couple of friends. And Marty and I had really been praying about the finances. This was during the 2-year breakthrough period. And my friend said to me, Lynn, would you like to have a support and accountability group? And I thought, man, that's just about the nicest question anybody's ever asked me. So much so I was kind of flustered. I didn't know how to respond. And the other friend, there were 3 of us there, said, Lynn, did you hear what he said? And I said, yes, I did. I would love to have a group. Well, what he had in mind was that I would give him the names of some friends who might be inclined to keep us accountable financially and to support us, and then he would invite them. And I kind of thought that he would rather invite some of his well-to-do friends, and that's not what he meant. But I did give him the names of some friends, not necessarily just wealthy people, but friends. And he asked them, and every one of them said yes. So we started off with a group that, including Marty and me, was 8 people. And that was a group with whom we were completely open and accountable. We talked about our finances, what we spent on food, what we spent on transportation, what we spent on our YWAM staff fees or our contributions to our housing, and cars and all that. And Marty has always been good at keeping accounts. But keeping accounts is not complicated. It's just writing things down. And we could analyze how much we spent on all those kinds of categories in our lives. And every year, we'd meet twice a year for prayer and conversation and support and fantastic times together. Just have people who were there to encourage and support you. Whew, what a blessing. And I think many more people in YWAM could have those kinds of groups if you just prayed and asked the Lord to provide them and obeyed Him. But once a year, we would submit to the group a complete record of the money we'd spent and what we'd received, how much we'd given away, and all the rest. And that was really helpful. And we talked about our lifestyle because we were working with people who were leaders in different areas of society, some of them quite wealthy. And then we're also living with YWAMers and YWAM base and accommodation and our lifestyle, how we live, the standard of living, needed to be somewhat compatible with both and finding the right blend of those two things. So it was so helpful to have people who would talk to us openly about that sort of thing. And, that was, 30, 35 years ago. And still today, we meet with a group that we're accountable to. Some of the same people. Others they were older than us to start with. They've died, and others have come on. But we now still have a group of 9 of us that get together a couple times a year for us to submit to them issues regarding our family and our marriage and our schedule and our finances. And they keep us accountable by giving us good feedback on how they perceive the way we're living and anything that they feel the Lord may be saying to us. And we know that we have very informed, committed intercessors. What a blessing that is. So maybe that's another piece in the puzzle for you for living by faith. I trust that thousands more will find that breakthrough where they begin to find God's abundant provision. I love that passage in John 10:10, where a newer translation says, "My purpose for you is that you might have a rich and satisfying life." That's God's heart for us. Isn't that great?